Imagine a prison so secure that escape isn't even part of the conversation, where inmates are watched every second, doors slam shut from miles away, and human contact becomes a distant memory. This is ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. But inside its walls, secrecy runs deeper than razor wire. Today, we uncover the hidden systems of solitary, surveillance, and survival. ADX Florence, located in Fremont County, Colorado, is often described as the most secure prison in the United States. Opened in 1994, it was designed specifically to house inmates considered too dangerous or disruptive for other federal prisons. Officials call it the United States Penitentiary, Administrative Maximum Facility, or simply ADX. But among prisoners and guards alike, it carries another name: the clean version of hell. The prison's location was carefully chosen. Nestled against the Rocky Mountains, miles away from any major city, ADX is surrounded by barren landscapes that make escape virtually impossible. Beyond the natural barriers, every design detail reinforces security. High concrete walls, lethal razor wire, and layers of motion detectors create a perimeter where even a bird's movement might raise suspicion. Unlike older prisons, ADX wasn't adapted to maximum security. It was born for it. Inside, the prison is divided into units, each designed to isolate, monitor, and control. From the outside, the compound may resemble a fortress of concrete blocks, but from within, it feels like a labyrinth engineered to disorient. Inmates can't see beyond their own block, can't communicate easily with those in other wings, and can't orient themselves toward the world outside. This isn't by accident, it's by design. Surveillance is the heartbeat of ADX Florence. Cells are monitored constantly, often with cameras that leave no blind spots. Remote-controlled steel doors ensure staff never have to physically open them. Pressure pads line corridors and perimeters, recording the smallest shifts in weight or movement. Every system is built on the assumption that the inmates are thinking of ways to defy it, and so the prison stays one step ahead. The Bureau of Prisons has emphasized that ADX was created not just to confine, but to neutralize. Its purpose isn't only to keep inmates locked inside, but to make sure they cannot organize, plot, or even dream of defiance. From the moment an inmate enters Florence, their identity is redefined, not as a prisoner in a cell, but as a body inside a tightly monitored system, where even thoughts of resistance seem futile. For many inmates, the sentence to ADX isn't about how many years they will serve, but about how they will endure the isolation. They are sealed away, not just from society, but from each other, every sound muted, every movement watched. Survivors often describe ADX as a place where time itself changes, where days blur into weeks, and human connection is stripped to its thinnest thread. If ADX Florence is already the most secure facility in America, then Module H, also called Unit H, is its hidden heart of control. Officially classified as a Special Administrative Measures (SAMS) unit, this section is reserved for inmates deemed too dangerous to communicate freely, often because of terrorism-related crimes or ongoing threats to national security. Unlike the general population of ADX, where prisoners are already locked down for 23 hours a day, Module H takes restrictions even further. Every detail of an inmate's life is subject to extraordinary limits. Phone calls, if allowed at all, may last only minutes. Letters are screened line by line, sometimes delayed for months. Even conversations with attorneys can be monitored or restricted under special measures authorized by the U.S. Department of Justice. For many prisoners here, human contact is almost non-existent. Some have described the unit as a prison within a prison. Inmates can spend years without seeing another human face outside of guards. Even their families are kept at a distance. Visits, when permitted, often happen through thick glass, their voices carried by static-filled intercoms. The design of Module H reflects this extreme purpose. Each cell is a concrete box with a small slit of a window angled upward, offering only a view of the sky. These cells are reinforced with layers of steel and electronic surveillance. Remote-controlled doors mean guards rarely approach directly. Cameras record every moment, while microphones capture even whispered words. Special Administrative Measures, known as SAMs, are the most severe form of communication restriction in the federal prison system. They can prohibit inmates from speaking with other prisoners, restrict legal visits, and censor all mail. The intent, according to officials, is to prevent dangerous inmates from directing violence or terrorism from inside the prison. But for those subjected to them, SAMs can feel like a sentence of invisibility. Notable inmates housed in Module H have included high-profile terrorists, organized crime leaders, and individuals whose influence was considered too dangerous to risk. The secrecy surrounding the unit is so intense that details often remain classified. What is known comes mostly from court filings, lawyer testimonies, and the accounts of former staff who describe an environment where silence itself becomes a form of punishment. Critics argue that conditions in Module H go beyond security and enter the realm of psychological torture. Organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have warned that prolonged solitary confinement, especially under SAMs, can cause irreversible mental harm. Depression, hallucinations, and self-harm are reported consequences for inmates deprived of all meaningful human interaction. Still, federal officials insist Module H is necessary. They point to cases where imprisoned leaders of extremist groups attempted to pass coded messages through lawyers or family members. For the government, the risk of one successful communication leading to violence outside is enough to justify the extreme isolation inside. Module H remains one of the most secretive wings in the American prison system. It is rarely photographed, seldom described in detail, and tightly shielded from public view. For those inside, the silence is not just oppressive, it is absolute. Life inside ADX Florence is not just about concrete walls and steel doors. It is about the crushing silence that follows inmates everywhere. For prisoners confined 23 hours a day in a soundproof cell, the absence of human contact becomes its own form of punishment. Psychologists who have studied ADX describe the environment as designed to break the mind as much as the body. Inmates in solitary at ADX spend almost all of their time in a 7 by 12-foot cell. Meals arrive through a narrow slot. Exercise, if granted, happens in a small outdoor cage known among inmates as the dog run. Even then, they remain isolated, surrounded by concrete walls that block any meaningful view of the outside world. The result is sensory deprivation. No conversations, no natural sounds, no variation in the environment. The effects of such confinement are well documented. Reports from the U.S. Department of Justice and independent psychiatrists note that prolonged solitary confinement often leads to depression, anxiety, paranoia, and hallucinations. Inmates can become hypersensitive to sound, jumpy at the smallest noise, or so desperate for contact that they speak to themselves just to hear a voice. One federal lawsuit, Cunningham v. Federal Bureau of Prisons, 2012, forced the public to confront these conditions directly. Filed on behalf of mentally ill prisoners at ADX, it exposed stories of men deteriorating in isolation, some attempting suicide, others mutilating themselves in despair. The case ended with the Bureau of Prisons agreeing to reforms, including the transfer of certain mentally ill inmates to facilities better equipped for treatment. But critics argue that the changes did little to alter the core reality of solitary life at Florence. For those under special administrative measures in Module H, the psychological strain is even greater. Here, even basic communications, like a letter from a family member, may be censored or blocked. Attorneys have described clients who lost their grip on reality after years without meaningful human exchange. The American Psychiatric Association has repeatedly warned that such extreme isolation can cause irreversible damage. And yet, the surveillance never stops. Cameras watch inmates constantly. Motion detectors ensure no corner goes unseen, and every step echoes through the electronic systems designed to monitor them. To prisoners, this creates a paradox. They are utterly alone, yet never unobserved. It is a kind of hyper-isolation where privacy does not exist, but human connection is absent. Some former staff have admitted that the environment affects guards as well. Officers rotate through units where they may go days without direct interaction with inmates, relying instead on screens and remote controls. The cold efficiency of the system keeps both sides at a distance, reducing opportunities for abuse, but also stripping away any sense of humanity. In the end, survival inside ADX Florence often becomes a battle of the mind. Those who endure describe creating strict daily routines, push-ups in the cell, memorizati, on of books or mental games to hold on to structure. For some, religious faith becomes the only anchor. For others, small acts, like marking days on the wall, are the only way to resist the slow erosion of time. Every brick at ADX Florence was placed with one mission in mind: to control. Unlike older penitentiaries retrofitted for security, Florence was engineered from the ground up to be escape-proof. The design is both brutal and brilliant, layers of surveillance stacked until the idea of freedom seems absurd. The perimeter is the first line of defense. Beyond the 12-foot razor wire fences are motion detectors, pressure pads, and seismic sensors that can register the faintest disturbance. Even wildlife triggers alarms. Guard towers are unnecessary. Instead, cameras and remote systems scan the compound constantly. If someone somehow reached the outer fence, they would already be tracked long before their first step beyond the walls. Inside, surveillance becomes even more intimate. Every cell is equipped with cameras and listening devices. Guards do not open doors manually. Instead, thick steel doors are controlled electronically from a secure control room. This means staff can seal off an inmate without ever entering physical proximity. The architecture eliminates opportunities for ambush or human error. Corridors are narrow, with sightlines carefully calculated. Inmates rarely cross paths. When they move from cell to recreation or medical appointments, the path is cleared, doors locking and unlocking in sequence, ensuring no two prisoners encounter each other. The system is so tight that even the possibility of organizing resistance becomes unthinkable. Exercise yards follow the same philosophy. Each yard is enclosed in concrete, with walls high enough to block any meaningful view. Inmates can see only a patch of sky, preventing them from orienting themselves to the outside world. There is no horizon, no landscape, nothing to measure distance or direction. Orientation, essential to planning any escape, is erased from their daily lives. Technological oversight extends to communication as well. Telephones are limited, monitored, and recorded. Letters pass through multiple layers of inspection before leaving the facility. Even attorney visits are observed, and under special administrative measures, every word can be restricted. The message is clear. Nothing leaves Florence that the Bureau of Prisons does not approve. What makes ADX different from older high-security prisons is not only its walls, but its philosophy. Rather than relying on staff in towers or armed patrols, Florence relies on systems: mechanical, electronic, architectural. The design itself becomes a form of discipline. Inmates are not simply watched. They are enveloped in an environment that never stops watching. Former wardens have described Florence as a place where the architecture does the work. That is the secret of its success. The building itself enforces silence, control, and compliance. Human guards remain present, but they are no longer the sole line of defense. Instead, technology ensures vigilance without fatigue, precision without hesitation. This relentless surveillance creates what some experts call a panopticon effect, borrowed from the philosopher Jeremy Bentham's idea of a prison where inmates never know when they're being watched. The effect forces prisoners to assume they are under observation at all times. In Florence, this isn't a theory, it's reality. The result is compliance, not through force, but through psychological certainty. For those locked inside, there is no corner of privacy, no shadow unobserved. Freedom is not just denied, it is designed out of existence. ADX. Florence is home to some of the most notorious names in American criminal history. Terrorists like Ramzi Youssef, mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Leaders of violent cartels, mafia bosses, and domestic extremists. Even Unabo. Ted Kaczynski lived out his final years here before his death in 2023. For these inmates, daily life is stripped down to repetition: meals through a slot, a single hour in the concrete exercise pen, and silence broken only by the mechanical clank of doors. Some, like those in Module H, are further silenced by special administrative measures, unable to speak freely even to their own attorneys. To the outside world, these names are infamous. Inside ADX, they are reduced to numbers, swallowed by the same concrete system that never blinks. ADX. Florence is more than a prison. It is a machine, an architectural and psychological design intended to erase risk, silence voices, and contain the most feared individuals in America. For some, it is a necessary safeguard, preventing violence from spilling beyond the walls. For others, it is a symbol of excess, where security eclipses humanity. In the end, the secrets of ADX are not just its steel doors or motion sensors. The true secret is survival, how inmates, and even staff, endure a place built to break both body and mind. If you found this deep dive into the Alcatraz of the Rockies eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. More hidden stories from behind the walls are on the way.